Hi guys, I want to talk for a few minutes today about the EOC practice that we did last week. You read this poem that you see on the screen, and then you answered 9 multiple choice questions. Those questions were very much like the ones you'll see on the end of course test that you'll be taking in just about a month now. So let's start with this. Go ahead in a second and hit pause on this screencast. Stop it so that you're not hearing my voice anymore. And get out your copy of this poem, Improvement. You should still have a copy of it from last class. Get out your copy of the poem and reread it, thinking about the poet's message, main idea, theme, all of that good stuff. So take a minute, hit pause, take a minute and reread the poem. Okay, so hopefully you hit pause a minute ago and you spent a few minutes looking back over the poem called Improvement. Before we go on with the questions, I want to give you a couple of tips on reading poetry, especially if you're going to be answering questions on a poem. So first of all, read it like you would read anything else. Just because it's written with meter and rhyme doesn't mean you need to read it differently. Read a poem like you would read anything else, and just be aware that when you read poetry, you're going to come across more metaphorical language. So there will be a lot of language where the author is there will be a lot of language where the author is not saying exactly what he means. The author or the poet is saying something in a way where something represents something else. So there's a couple of tips for you on reading poetry. Now back to the actual poem that you read. It's called Improvement. Remember, we always want to notice titles. And rather than spend time in this screencast talking about what this poem means, we'll talk about this together when we come back together as a class. But hopefully you reviewed it on your own and got out of it that it has something to do with life and the problems we face in life and how we should face them and the importance even of those problems. I see a few key lines here. Again, it's called Improvement, and a few key lines. The joy in life is living it, and then down here, in seeing wrongs and righting them by leaving better than he found to bloom along the way. And then down here, the miseries of earth are here, and with them all must cope. And then down here, the wrongs are here for man to right, and happiness is had by striving to supplant, which means replace, with good, the evil and the bad. So making life better, that seems to be a main point. Yeah? All right. So let's move on to looking at a few questions. All right, let's look at the first question that you had to answer. Which statement represents the theme of the selection? Hopefully, when you saw the word theme, you remembered that we've talked many, many times about the fact that a theme is a life lesson that can apply to anyone. A theme is a life lesson that can apply to anyone. So, which statement represents the theme of this selection? Take a minute, hit pause, and look at these 4 choices again. Okay, so I think that you could probably pretty quickly eliminate both B and C. B we eliminate because the poem is not talking about cleaning the earth. The poem is talking about righting wrongs, big issues of good and evil. It's not about cleaning anything. And then negative people can ruin the earth. This poem is not a statement about other people. It's not a statement about what negative people do. This poem is more about what each of us can do to make ourselves happy. So I think we can eliminate B and C right away, and that leaves us with 2 answer choices. And you know, this is almost always the way it happens. Almost always you will be able to eliminate 2 because they just don't make sense. And then you're going to end up with 2 that you have to choose between. And hopefully, if you're doing this methodically, you'll see that one is a little better than the other. So, A, working through life's problems is gratifying. Now, if you don't know what the word gratifying means, that can cause a bit of a problem, but I don't think it's a big problem because I feel like you can really figure this out in context. Gratifying. Life is gratifying. I can tell it's some sort of adjective. And you know what else? I can also think of other words that seem related, like grateful or gratitude, and that's a good thing. So that makes this working through life's problems is a good thing. All right, so I'm going to keep that in the back of my head while I go look at the other one. And then it says richness comes from hard work. All right, so richness here does not mean money wealth. Richness means depth and meaning. So I don't have a problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is the phrase hard work. The poem wasn't all about hard work, was it? I mean, it talks about hard work in a way, but the poem is about facing things. The poem is about seeing problems. The only happy time of rest is that which follows strife, and sees some contribution made unto the joy of life. And then down here, the miseries of earth are here, and with them all must cope. So I don't feel like this poem is so much about working hard as it is just facing life's difficulties. So that brings me back to A. A is the correct answer here, and many of you got that right, so congratulations. All right, I'm going to stop this screencast here because it's getting pretty long, but you should have another video to click on that will take us through a second question.